What's in a name? Ooh, this is still really loud. Hello. Lawrence Tenants is in the back for all you guys who want to see what a real tenants union looks like. Lawrence Tenants is right there. If you have questions, you can go to them. You can sign up. They have lots of fun events. They're going to have a town hall here on May 31st to talk about right to counsel for tenants. So all of you guys wouldn't need any of this information and it could, in fact, just have a free lawyer provided by the city for any reason. Okay. Let's get started. This is Tenants' Rights. This is part one of a three-part series that we're going to be doing this summer. I'm Michael Hillary. I'm an attorney with Kansas Legal Services. I've been an attorney for like 7-something years. And yes, we do a lot of things, but one of the things we do is defense for people who are dealing with an eviction. If you want to talk to us, you can just apply online at kansaslegalservices.org or this phone number. If anybody wants this presentation, I will just send it to you. I'll just give it to you. Our two key offices in this area are the Kansas City office and the KLS Topeka office. The Topeka office technically covers this area, but what we do is we provide all sorts of assistance, so I want you guys to be well aware that we have lots of attorneys available to help you with your eviction problems. Or, let's see here, family law, consumer protection, elder law, juvenile law, education law, disability, veterans benefits. If you have a dishonorable discharge, you need to get that upgraded. We can do that. How dare someone call me right now? Whoa. No, fortunately, attorneys can have phones in the courtroom nowadays. Okay, so we have a little agenda for everybody. First off is lies that landlords tell everybody. We'll get to those, they're fun. Second off, we have common mistakes, misconceptions that we all have because of the internet and TikTok and things like that. We all think there are certain things and realities about the world that are not in fact true because they are not enshrined in law, ergo not true. We're going to talk about the landlord-tenant relationship, how it starts, leases and inspections, and what to do while you are a tenant to make sure that you get the best possible experience out of being a tenant. And here is a picture of Ethan Hawke as John Brown. Yeah. He's an Academy Award-winning actor. Look at him go. In it like Daniel Day-Lewis in that one right there. Look at that beard. Wild. That must have been a hot day on set. Okay, so the law. I talk about the law a lot. These are the laws. The Kansas Residential Landlord-Tenant Act is the law that controls all landlord-tenant relations in Kansas, including the consumer protection laws that are implicated by your landlord. So if your bank says you owe me $30 and doesn't tell you why, what happens? Well, I mean, that's fun. It is true, but also the bank has to pay you $10,000. Why? You ever got $10,000 from your bank? It's because you have not yet sued them for their many infractions of your various consumer protection laws under the state of Kansas and the federal government. But all of the laws relating to landlords and tenants are in the Kansas Landlord-Tenant Act. There's also one for mobile homes specifically, and the procedure by which you can be evicted is under these laws, Chapter 61 of the Code of Civil Procedures for Limited Actions, because the court doesn't think that evictions are altogether that important. So they put them in their own special tiny little court, not the big district court. There's also local housing and maintenance codes, which we will talk about. In Lawrence, right, we use the 2018 International Property Maintenance Code. Has anybody ever read that? Ever seen it? Oh, Gabby has. Hell yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this tells you all the code violations. You know, you've heard of these, the code violations. You know, like at a restaurant, they have to change gloves between each sandwich, things like this. Do you know it's a code violation if you can see the outside under the frame of your door? Can anybody currently see the outside under the frame of the door in the place that they live? Not the garage door, unless the garage is like also like heated like part of the house, like a finished garage. But yeah, if you can do that, your landlord is violating city code. And you can call code enforcement and have that be fixed. All right. We also have a Kansas Tenants Handbook created by HCCI. Bunch of other stuff. The Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority also has a number of policies that are generally construed as binding on people who are residents of, what's that place? Edgewood. Yes, I used to work there. Yes, get it. No, I have helpfully the links in here, so I can send this to you, and you can click the links and follow them to those magical things. The property code does cost money to have and look at. It's behind it. The laws that...
can't write that fast.
Oh, no, it's fine. That's why I send out the thing. So don't worry. You can have a copy. To print out the housing code? Yes, it does. Yes, the property maintenance code? Yes, it does. You have to purchase it. It is behind a paywall because it is a code. Unlike laws, which are free. Hello. Yes.
We live in Baldwin City. Normally, like you said, tenant-landlord covers Douglas. But they say they don't cover Baldwin City because they don't receive funding from that.
That's a fun lie. Yeah, no, the Kansas Landlord-Tenant Act covers all tenants in the state of Kansas, regardless of their location or local rules. And what's fun specifically about Baldwin is, despite the fact that it would love to not be part of Douglas County, it is and can't escape. Okay. The first way we meet a landlord is generally, and we've begun. Here we are. Hello, everybody. The first way we meet a landlord is through an application, right? Do you need, by law, to have an application to apply for a place to live? That's right. No reason to. No reason at all. I brought up some of these fun things. This is one that I found online, right? So a landlord can collect any amount of information they want about you, and they can fail to allow you to live someplace for any reason that is not racist or sexist, right? So they have all this stuff like, oh, you failed to put in your emergency contact, so we're not going to rent to you. Them's the breaks. And what I mean by that is those are the red flags. Like any relationship, you have a continuing relationship with your landlord. And so you should look out for these kind of red flags. Did you do? They have stuff like, tell me who your previous landlord is. Give me your personal references. Tell me what pets you have. Any other occupants. Do they need any of that information to sign a contract for a lease? No.
If they do, after they gave you your home, then they can ask all that.
No.
Really?
Why?
Because they told me to.
Of course they did. That's what landlords do. That's also what banks do. That's also what credit card companies do. Loan sharks do it. It's weird that all these people live in the same category of illegal nonsense that they do. Okay. Do they need to know if you're a criminal? If you have a felony? Do they need to know? They ask.
Well, especially like if you're a child molester or something like that.
Well, you found it. That is the one thing they can ask about, is whether or not you're a child molester. Yes. Whether you're on the sex offender registry, you, as an offender, have an ongoing personal responsibility to inform any landlord or place that you're going to live, mortgage company, anything like that, or court, that you are a sex offender. So, always report. The drug registry does not require you to tell people you're on the registry. It does for some people, but not specifically for landlords. All right, so the only protection you have, or the only protection that they need to give you, that is to say, is what's in the Fair Housing Act. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, gender, religion, familial status, disability, or ethnicity. Was criminality in that list? No. I like the audience participation. This is good. Yahoo! So if a landlord says, like, you're black, I can't rent to you, that is discrimination. People are like, they're discriminating against me because I don't have any money or something like that. No, discrimination is only these things, right? Under the Fair Housing Act, they can deny you for any reason. In Douglas County, they cannot anymore deny you because of where your income comes from. Like if you get welfare benefits or things like that. If they say they can, they're violating the law. Does this help you? Only in one way. Don't rent from them. If they're dicks, don't rent from them. It's going to be a bad relationship. You wouldn't just like date some guy just because he had a Hummer and a speedboat. Don't go and rent from these people who are going to be all like, your credit needs to be over 740 if you really want to live at the connections, right? Okay, another thing they cannot discriminate against you for is your disability, right? If you need a chair, you need a cane, you need a walker, anything like this, maybe you have trouble seeing, they need to provide you with, go back one. Yes, once again, I will give you this. If you want it, I will give it to you. Just email me. Right? I'll give cards to anybody. I'm an attorney. It's kind of our thing. Okay, here we are. They must also provide reasonable accommodations. If you tell them, and that reasonable accommodation is not an undue burden, right? Putting in a ramp, giving you an apartment on the first floor, things like that. Widening doorways so they're wheelchair accessible, other things like that. For any tenant, not necessarily for any of your guests, right? If you have like, my mom needs this, well, if she's not on the lease, they don't bear responsibility under the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended in 1993. Okay, so here we go. Lies landlords tell everybody. We've already started some of this, which is fun. Let's keep going. So, if you have a lease, who's a tenant here? Raise your hand. Who's a tenant? Who's a landlord? Just me? Just me? Shit. All right. Okay. So, I bet you can go and get a copy of your lease right now. If your landlord won't give you a copy of your lease, that's a bad landlord, right? They should give you a copy of their lease. Are they legally bound to give you a copy of your lease?
No.
Haha, that's right. So, get a copy of your lease. Always keep a copy of your lease. The lease that you signed. What they'll often do is you sign a lease and they're like, oh yeah, we'll give you a copy in like 5 days. And it'll be like a copy that you didn't necessarily sign, that you don't really remember, and it's like 7 pages longer than the one that you did sign. I know this happened to me at 1314 Tennessee Street. It was fine. They didn't charge me. I just left at one point. Okay. You cannot waive or forego any rights or remedies under this act. That's a weird, nonsensical, legal-sounding question, but what it means, yes? Yes, go for it. Yep. Okay, so yeah, we're skipping ahead really quick, but the portal stuff, the portal nonsense that they're all getting into, and the $9 portal charge you're getting tacked onto, is that legal? No. Yes, of course it is. Because you are freely engaging in a contract with these people. You are freely choosing to do this. If they are amending or changing your lease or the amount you pay for any reason, they give you what? An opportunity to leave, and that is all, right? It's not like they can say like, oh, we're going to make an exception for you, unless it is, what? A disability. So, mostly the Americans with Disabilities Act does not accept that like, I'm too old to get on the internet as a real disability. We'll get there someday. Okay, so waive or forego any rights under this act. So we're going to talk about a lot of things that tenants have rights to do. Our rights under the Kansas Landlord-Tenant Act. And no lease can contain a lease condition that forgoes or waives one of those rights. I cannot have a lease provision that says that, like, I waive your right to come into my apartment anytime you want, landlord. You can just wander on in here, open door policy. That might be in your lease, but it's not legal. I guarantee in every single one of your leases is this line. You agree to pay the landlord's attorney's fees upon eviction. It's in every single lease. Why? People don't read the laws, and landlords can get away with it. Tack on those legal fees, take away your security deposit. Tack on that like, oh, I had to double dry clean your carpet, so you have to pay. If it's not in the lease, I don't have to pay anything. If it is in the lease, that's a red flag to let you know that your landlord is a charlatan, right? Would you go to like a charlatan's church? Would you hang out with a charlatan at the tap room? No. So don't live in a charlatan's house. All right. Oh, this is another thing. Confess judgment. This is something that we don't see too much, but like, you know, if I leave early, I agree that the landlord can keep my security deposit. That is a confession of judgment, right? Now, it's in there. The landlord will try to enforce it. They'll try to make you pay. A lawyer will come and be like, you have to pay this. You know that you signed this, right? It's a big thing to sign something. It's a lie, right? And when it goes to court, they'll say, I never said that. And boom, we'll get your money back, plus a month and a half of rent. All right, continuing. A landlord may not retaliate against you for only these reasons. Landlords love to retaliate, but actually it only applies to a couple things. Landlord can retaliate for a lot of stuff that's not covered by this law. Why? This law was written by landlords in 1974. All right. But if you go and complain about landlords' violations of their legal duties, like going to code enforcement to say, hey, I can see the sunlight under all my doors, I have no back window, there's weird pets from my neighbors inside my house sneaking in through holes, all things I've seen, the landlord cannot retaliate for that. You can show a nexus, which means a connection of the time the landlord did that and the time that you called code enforcement. We'll talk a little bit about this later, but if you can show that, hey, they had a thing on my door saying like, hey, your tenancy's up in 30 days. Within 2 months, 6 months of that, depending on your communication with your landlord, and we'll talk about that too, we can find that they're retaliating against you for that. So always keep track of when you call code enforcement. And we'll tell you how here in just a second. All right. Yeah, here we go. We've been through a little bit of this. There are no laws for these things. Right? I love this one. I just had somebody tell me this, right? She couldn't get away from her abuser because she couldn't get a landlord to house her because she'd been evicted in the past 7 years. Oh, 7 years. It sounds legal, sounds real. It's not. It's just made up. Right here in Douglas County, we have an explicit county ordinance that says you cannot discriminate based on where somebody gets their money or the source of income, right? If part of your money comes from Section 8, part of your money comes from the government, your money comes from Social Security, they cannot discriminate on that basis. Do, and of course, yeah, paying for the apartment to be cleaned. This is my favorite one. No. They can't charge you. There's no law that says that. There's, in fact, laws that say the opposite of that. So, I have this in here. Here we go. We're moving, clicking right along. Who's confused? How can I help you with your confusion, sir? No? Slow down? I can slow down. I talk really fast. It's possible, yes. And this is only one of 3, so fear not. All right. I put this in here because a lot of people keep coming to me with this one problem. My landlord gave me a notice and says, I have to be out by such and such date. I got to be out by the 5th. I got to be out. They're going to change the locks. They're going to do blah, 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 you know? Anybody seen a notice like this? You got 2 weeks to leave. You got to leave. You got to get out. You didn't pay rent. You got to get out. You got to get out. Yes, there is a notice to vacate. That's real. But your landlord can't do it. Who is the only person who can evict you? Sheriff. The sheriff, as ordered by the judge in a writ of restitution. There must be a writ of restitution in that sheriff's hand. It is just like a warrant where it says, I have this writ, I can kick you out. If off-duty Sergeant Bob shows up and says, I'm putting all your shit on the street, that's not real. Show me your writ of restitution. Show me that. That's the only thing that says the sheriff can come in and change the locks. And it's only the sheriff. It's not the landlord, because I've got the writ of restitution. I can kick you out, you scumbag. No, it's the sheriff. It's the sheriff who serves a writ of restitution. And people get away with this all the time. Beep. How are we feeling? Intense? Coming on, it's a new presentation, so I'm just trying it out. We might be a little intense at first. We might need more pictures of Ethan Hawke. That's why I had it in there. All right, here we go. All right, so the life cycle of a tenancy is this very simple graph. You move in, you live, and then you're either moved out or you're evicted.
There's another one.
What's that, you die?
The other one is when they refuse to renew your lease.
Well, that is a move out or an eviction.
Move out? Okay.
Yep,
It's not an eviction.
they could be.
It's not, because I've experienced it twice. It is not an eviction. I didn't break the law. I didn't violate my lease.
What about an eviction is breaking the law?
I'm sorry.
Nothing about an eviction is breaking the law.
Payment of rent.
That's not a law. There's no law that says you have to pay rent. It's not a law. It's a civil action. It's not the police don't come and tell you haven't paid your rent. Your landlord has to sue you. It's your landlord. These are civil laws. This is a civil proceeding, just like a divorce. Civil proceeding. It's not illegal. You didn't do anything bad. If you didn't pay your rent, that's fine. It's just something that happens, right? Circumstances. It's not a crime to not pay rent. Should you pay rent to fulfill your contract obligation to your landlord? Yes, but it is not a crime, right? And when the landlord tells you to move out, says that your lease is terminated in 30 days, right? Or your lease term is up. If you move out at the end of your lease, you've moved out. If you don't move out, you will be evicted. What are we doing? There we go. Bam. Can you skip rent?
No.
Absolutely not. Yep, all payments made to the landlord, other than the security deposit, are rent, right? So if you're paying your landlord utilities, in fact, your rent, which you might think is $500 or $800, is $800 plus that. Oh, you also owe $100 for the water and the trash. So actually, your rent is what? $900. Thank you. Yes. Okay. I put these in here. This is a big list. And I think this covers all sort of the same things. We all see these things happening, and there are no laws controlling them, right? Mold and infestations, for example. You can tell me till you're blue in the face and show me all the pictures that show me that you have mold. You can also show those to the judge. What you need is testing, right? Common mistake is someone will bring in a bunch of shit, say that I've got all this mold happening in my house, and it's ruining me, it's giving me asthma, it's giving my kids asthma, it's giving my dog asthma. I need testing. The court needs testing to show that it is aspergillus. It is black mold that is dangerous. Mold happens all the time. Have you seen bread, right? You need to get that tested. That's the first thing. When you see the mold come out, take out your phone, take a picture, and take the mold to code enforcement, right? Same thing with high utility bills, right? As we said, all payments to the landlord that are not the security deposit are rent. If your landlord divvies up the utility bills amongst people in the apartment, which they do a lot, the whole complex, this is your portion. All of a sudden, what was $17, what was $30 is suddenly $300. You need to start making note of that. Yes?
When you talk about infestations, are you talking about bugs?
Yes.
So with that, usually, like my landlord makes someone that they know come in. What would be the course of action for that? To hold them in?
Okay, so if one of the landlord's duties, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is controlling infestations, right? They are the ones who have to spray. If they say you have to spray or you have to pay for the spray, both of those things are not allowed, right? So what we do when we see those sorts of things, we want you to take notice of it, take pictures of it. If it lasts for longer than a month, it becomes actionable, and I'll tell you about that at the end, right? Things that last for more than a month that are wrong are generally actionable. Things that happen in one day are actionable, but generally when we look at things that are endemic, heating and cooling not working, water not working, infestations, mold, repairs going on for long periods of time, it's over the course of a month that they become actionable, because if your apartment or wherever you're living, a house or whatever you're renting, falls out of habitability, then you can get that money back, and we'll tell you how. Can you skip rent, though, while your house is falling apart around you? No, never, for any reason. You will pay for that water-filled, bed-bug-soaked place, because that is the law. You will continue to pay because there is no contractual allowance for a tenant to skip rent. All right. High late fees. These are very interesting. If you're getting high late fees or things like that, they're still like, hey, it's $5 a day, and then it's $10 after that every single day. So at the end of the month, your rent is half or more. If your late fees are more or half of your rent, then you're probably suffering from unconscionable late fees. And what you need to do is reach out to Kansas Legal Services. We can help you get some of that money back. Once again, code enforcement is here again. Please call code enforcement. Please call code enforcement. They can create real evidence that makes it easier. It's not just pictures that you took blindly in the corner. No, it's real evidence, real science. Very helpful. Do you need a lease? Common mistake. Do you need a lease to live somewhere? No. No, you don't, right? Does your friend who's sleeping on your couch have a tenant-landlord relationship with you? Yes. Bam. Yeah. Your horrible cousin who just drinks all day and sleeps on your couch is in fact your tenant. Yes? Hopefully they can move out of their own accord with the help of, I don't know, Jesus or something. But they are in fact a tenant. So if they're staying there or you're subleasing, maybe, your boyfriend or your girlfriend moves in and they're living with you, and we've got no agreement, unspoken. We've never said, you owe me money. Hey, just give me a little bit of money for the utilities, and you could stay here. It's fine. No big deal. We're sharing, We're a modern, no labels kind of relationship. No big deal. Well, that amount that you just spouted out is in fact your rental agreement, right? If there is no agreement, the tenant shall pay the fair rental value of the house. If you have an agreement, say like, hey, Max, my little brother, Max, you have to pay, just give me $50 for Christ's sakes. Just, something, because you're eating all the cheese. That's an agreement. If there's no agreement, the tenant shall pay the fair rental value of the house on a monthly basis, unless you agree to a weekly basis. Okay, this is my favorite thing. Everything must be in writing. Should you call your landlord? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Yeah. If there's an emergency, call the fire department. Yeah? If there's that's the thing is, but you text your landlord immediately and you say, hey, you can have a text that's this long and say all these things are happening horribly right now, immediately 911, blah, 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 blah. Big old text message, but have it in writing. Yeah? Have it in writing. If you make a payment, get a receipt and keep it all together, right? Too many times, someone's just oh yeah, I got this folder of stuff. Oh, some of these are receipts for the grocery store. But it's back at my house, I promise. The pictures of the water damage are back at my house. I got them, I promise I'll bring them to you. Keep it all together, right? And then take pictures, not videos. In court, you have a very limited amount of time to explain to the judge the devastating, the consequences of the problems at your house. That can be done with pictures. If you have some blurry video of you being like, my basement's been flooded for like 3 weeks and I think this is sewage and I don't know, but it just keeps raining because it's April. You think the judge is going to watch that? The judge is going to entertain your strange narration of the problems that are going on in your house? No. Boom, picture, water. Why do you have a picture of water? That's evidence in and of itself. People don't wander around with pictures of water, unless it's a beautiful sunset over the sewage in your basement. Just bring a picture. That's all I need. That's all a lawyer needs. That's all the judge needs. If you have to explain it yourself, yes or go.
Very interesting picture you have on the screen.
Yes.
Because the focus of this is mostly you're the tenant and there's this landlord over here somewhere.
Yeah.
Is there anything I've never heard of at least that talks about people who are hoarders? Like these
This guy knows where everything is in this house. He's got a system. A system. Yes. No, you are, as a tenant, we'll get to that later. It is your responsibility to keep the premises as clean as possible and take out all your ashes and rubbish. All right. Woo. Let's go to the lease. How much time we got? We got lots of time. All right. So, one thing, read your lease. We were talking about before. Read your lease, know these red flags going in, right? If you're seeing red flags, like we're going to charge you $750 for a carpet clean, whether you clean or not, that'll be in your lease, and they will enforce that, right? Read your lease and have a good relationship with your landlord, right? I've had many, many landlords over the course of my living in Lawrence, and you know what? I had an okay relationship with all of them. I don't make it adversarial. You don't need to be the one to say, like, the law says blah, 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 blah. Let me do that. I went to law school. It's my thing to say, the law says, actually. So let us do that. Contact an attorney. Contact Kansas Legal Services. When you have these things going on, contact code enforcement. Code enforcement can say, like, hey, Billy, guess what? If your house falls in, we're going to take your landlord license away, right? Like they did in Gardner. We all see this that just happened? In Gardner, Kansas, just south of here, a 188-family apartment complex was condemned in one day because the landlord failed to maintain the premises, had a water leak so bad that it collapsed part of the street outside, right? Landlords do this until they can't get away from it. And the problem is until people like you and me enforce our rights and enforce these landlords to keep a good house, to keep a nice place, this is their building. Can you imagine if I left you my dog and it was just horribly sick and I said, how dare you let my dog be sick? It's insane. So have them fix up the house that they own. I'm just living there. It's not my fault if the rental car has no bumper or seats inside. The rental car is supposed to be a rental car, right? If you would return your house to TJ Maxx if you bought it, don't let the landlord get away with it. What else we got here? Aha, here we go. The duties of the landlord. Okay, so the landlord can make rules, right? No smoking. But the rules must apply equally to everyone. They cannot just enforce just the rules about smoking against one person. If, Billy upstairs is smoking all day and you can't smoke, and he says, I'm going to evict you if you keep smoking, right? I'll send you a notice if you keep smoking. Well, rules have to be applied to everyone. All right? This is more, it also, just to be clear, these laws are pretty robust. It must be sufficiently clear what it is the tenant must not do, right? Another thing that I love for this law is they're like, you're doing drugs in your apartment. And it's just like, well, your son comes over to fix the house all the time, and he's just smoking weed the whole time. So what does it matter that I'm doing drugs, If my neighbors are doing drugs, why aren't you applying it to them? These things have to be applied equally. It must be clear what you mean. If you're going to kick me out because of your drug policy for taking my morning medication, hey, guess what? it's not clear that you want a whole unmedicated building or something like that. When you move in, there we go. You must do an inventory of the premises. Who has done an inventory of their premises? Oh, quite a few of you, yes. For all of you who haven't, this is a duty that is shared by both the landlord and the tenant. Both people must do the inspection. If the landlord doesn't do the inspection, they miss out on the benefits of doing the inspection, and you can get 1.5 months' rent back. Right? But you also share the duty to do an inspection. So within 5 days, are we past 5 days for those who haven't done the inspection? That's not good. That's fine. Don't worry about it. Within 5 days, you must take an inspection, an inventory of the premises. This means look at all the holes where the door was slammed into the wall, yeah? The cracks, the spaces, the mice, the roaches, whatever it is. Take a picture of it and send it to the landlord. Let the landlord know, this is the state of my property when I moved in, right? The landlord needs to know, because this way they can't take it out of your security deposit at the end, which they probably will. Who thinks they will? There we go. A lot of optimists in the crowd today. I like that. All right. Duplicate copies must be signed by both parties. You send it to them. If they don't sign it, this is why we do everything in writing. A nice email not only says, look, I sent you this document or these documents on this day. I asked you to sign it. If you didn't do it, we have a great record. If we made a phone call, I don't know what happened on that phone call. If we recorded that phone call, then imagine you're just in court listening to like, oh, that's what you think is going to happen. I got you in the inventory. Think the judge wants to listen to that? No. Let's make it easy for him. I want to add this in here. If you are the victim of any kind of domestic violence, there's a special provision in the law that was just created in 2022 that says, hey, the tenant, the victim of domestic violence, who can prove it with a writing from a judge or a actual doctor, not a psychologist, not your pet psychic, an actual doctor, are not liable for rent, and they can leave with 1 month's penalty if they are the victim of domestic violence. So if you're the victim of domestic violence and the landlord is like, oh, shucks, well, you still owe, you got to, if you want to move out early, you got to pay the 3-month fee, and the cleanup fee. No, you can get out with a reasonable termination fee not to exceed 1 month's rent, only if it is in the rental agreement, which is probably not, but otherwise not liable for rent for the period after the tenant vacates. So if you have to leave because Jimmy turned out to be a psycho, great. You're not liable for rent. They'll probably sue you, but they won't get any money. All right. What are our responsibilities as a landlord and a tenant? This here, that's a landlord. All right. The duties of the landlord, we'll get into this real fun here. The landlord, we've talked about this quite a bit, shall comply with all building and housing codes materially affecting health and safety. If you can see the light under your door, does that materially affect health and safety? Yeah, it does, yeah. Keeps the bugs out, keeps the weird neighbors out. Yeah, it's nice. This would be like things like electrical stuff. Electrical outlets not working. I would definitely make the argument that that materially affects health and safety. Yeah? That's a fire hazard. I'm not an electrician, and neither is your, little son who comes over all coked out to fix the wires. He's not an electrician. He doesn't know. He's like, oh, it's probably fine. Yeah? That's why I have the toaster next to the bathtub. Yeah. He's an idiot. All right. They must maintain reasonable maintenance of the common areas, just like an apartment building. They're the ones who have to clean, the hallways and everything like that. Those are the common areas, grills, that outdoor area, if they have a mixed commons in like your, the connections, first management, those sorts of places have those sorts of things. This is the most important one. In good, safe working order. They must maintain all electrical, plumbing, sanitary, heating, ventilating, air conditioning, elevators supplied by the landlord. So your stove breaks. Maybe you are a stove technician, a stove mechanic. Should you fix your stove? No, that's right. If the stove breaks, if the refrigerator breaks, whose fault is it? The landlord's, unless you broke your stove, you know.
This would be on a furniture department where they're supplying all these. If they're your personal
Yes.
stove or whatever.
If you brought your own stove, that's your problem. Yes, this is true. Most people, I don't think, bring their own stove. But if you did bring your own stove or your own refrigerator, that's fine. Supplied by the landlord is added for that purpose. The same thing with plumbing. They'll often say like, oh, well, you're flushing 2-ply. As long as you are reasonably using your unit, right? I am reasonably cooking. I'm not trying to jam a whole goat in the oven. We did that at Paisano's one time. It was magical. But as long as you are reasonably using your facilities, there is no reason why you would be responsible for the repair of said facilities. Your duty as a tenant is to keep things as clean as reasonably possible, right? Living a normal life. Go for it. Hello.
So, I had a landlord where the air conditioner broke and during a heat wave, but I had COVID. So, they wouldn't come in to fix it for like 14 days until I threatened to sue them.
Oh, that's fun. No, yeah, they can't do that. They can suit up and they can come in and they can fix it, for sure. You can just hear the danger to a person's safety of that situation, particularly if they are ill and the landlord knows about it. If the landlord knew or should have known that you had COVID or like a respiratory disease or something like that, and they're not fixing fixtures, that's a problem. And the landlord is failing their duties of a landlord. What happens when a landlord fails their duties as a landlord? You give them a notice. We'll talk about that later. All right. Okay. Can they kick you out? No. If they do, and this includes like turning off your water to kick you out, right? Turning off your gas, taking off your door, which we had just last month, magical. If they do that, you get damages. Who knows what damages are? Money, that's right. Just like slipping and falling at a Walmart. Damages. There are many kinds of damages outlined in the law. Some are like actual damages. Your actual damages, that's like, okay, my heater broke. I had to go and stay in a hotel out of my own pocket, right? The cost on the receipt of the hotel is my actual damages, right? I get an offender bender. Hey, it's going to cost $700 to fix. $700 is my actual damages. When we just say damages, what does that mean? Yes. It's subjective. Yes, that means it can include like the damages to my psyche, to my job. Maybe I had to go to therapy because the landlord took the door off and a bat came in and I made friends with it. Yeah? You can get damages for all of the problems caused by the landlord's breach here. All right, if a landlord materially fails to comply with the rental agreement, right, or their legal duties that materially affect health and safety, the tenant may deliver what? A 30-day notice to the landlord. Who knows what this is?
They deliver to us.
They do, yes.
Giving them the dip now.
Well, we both have that power, right? The landlord can give you a 1430 for something that's happening at your house that materially affects health and safety, right? Like, well, they give you them for everything. Like you have an unauthorized tenant or something like that. They can give you for violating any rule, they can give you a 1430. It must materially affect health and safety. But we can also give our landlords a 1430. Now, what does that mean? The landlord has 14 days to make a good faith effort to fix it. Yes, just effort. But we also share that burden. I have a good faith effort to get my little brother off that couch. And I'm going to try. I'm going to cut off his weed, and he's going to get off that couch, right? But if they fail in a good faith effort, and a good faith effort, that's subjective. Like we can see, like, they sent Randy over, and he looked at him and be like, this is a big problem. That's not a good faith effort. I know he came over. That's fine. They didn't make an effort to fix it. We can talk about that in court. At the termination of the 30 days, right, which for us must be a rent-paying day. Let's look at what day is it? May 10th. Okay, let's say a water line breaks in my basement today, right? I'm renting. Going to give the landlord a $14.30. What day can I move out?
The 10th of next month.
You would think that, but that's right. It has to be yet the 1st of July, the next rent-paying day that is 30 days away from the breach, right? So they have 14 days until May 24th to fix the problem, right? Well, technically it would be tomorrow. So May 25th to fix the problem. And then only on July 1st can I say our rental agreement is terminated. I don't owe you a dime. That's what this law says. So when that happens, this infestation, these bed bugs, right, this mold, whatever it is that's causing you problems, you give them this $14.30 and you say, hey, I'm not out of here in September 1st. I'm out of here July 1st. Okay? Woohoo! All right. So this is the interesting thing when we talk about what is the difference? What can you get from getting out of these places, right? If you sue the landlord because they failed to let you out, then you can recover damages from the landlord. The best way to describe these damages is right up here. This is from a case called Love versus Monarch Apartments in 1989. Yeah, 36 years ago. The difference in what you can get from the landlord is the difference between what your property is worth and the fair rental value of the property. Okay? What is the fair rental value of a property that is full of mold? Zero. I'm not paying for that. What's the fair rental value of a place with no windows? Zero, right? Would you pay for it? Would you be like, look at this place, no roof. I like the open concept. Great location. It's outside. Yeah. So if a property fails that, then the difference that you get in damages can be the difference between whatever your rent was and the fair market value, right? That's fair. Let's say you have a place with a basement. Basement floods, right? I don't really want to live in a place with a basement, but I can still use the stove and the upstairs and all that stuff, so hey, let's call it half, right? Or maybe the basement's just like storage. Let's say 1/3, right? My rent is $900. Let's cut off a third of it. Landlord, the damages I'm requesting are for every month that there was water in that basement. I want $300 back, right? 4 months, it's $1,200. Easy. You also get your security deposit back. I have more of these on here. I would love for you guys to look at them. Here we go. If a landlord's actions result in a injury or tortious act, like a landlord just punches you, right? Hey, you can get punitive damages for breach of contract. So there's lots of ways to get money out of these landlords, and they do this all the time. Whew. Okay, so when we talk about this, we talk about landlords failing one specific duty. This is called the warranty of habitability, right? The warranty of habitability means that any building must be suitable for humans to live in, right? That makes sense? There's various warranties. The warranty of, I forget it now, but like if you were to buy a car, it has to function as a car, right? If I purchase a car for the purpose of a car, it must be merchantable as a car, the warranty of merchantability. If I buy a house, an apartment with rooms and a bathroom, I expect that place is habitable for humans. Sometimes they don't do this. Once again, please check with code enforcement first. Call code enforcement. I cannot stress that enough. It's where we're seeing a lot of action moving forward. Code enforcement, pulling landlords' licenses, condemning properties, and things like this is a great way in this day and age to get landlords motivated to fix these problems when they won't. When a landlord fails to give you a property that is habitable, you move in, you're doing your inspection, there's bed bugs everywhere, right? You're doing your inspection, this window's broken. Window doesn't latch, doesn't stay closed. This door doesn't close. The lock in the back doesn't work. All those sorts of things are a failure to deliver possession of the property, right? If they did not give you a habitable property, you do not possess what you asked for, what you bargained for. I give you rent so you can give me a habitable apartment, right? If they fail to deliver the premises fitting with the code enforcement, then rent abates. Who knows what abates means? Doesn't exist, right? Goes away as it comes in. It abates. So even if you've paid like, hey, landlord, it's been 6 months I've been here. It's getting really cold because now it's October, and this problem with the window not shutting is becoming a real issue, right? Rent has abated from day one, and you can say, landlord, you can fix this problem, or I can get all my rent back from you. Call a lawyer to have that conversation with the landlord, yeah? I don't really like to read all the slides, but please, if you want a copy of the slides, please have some. Okay, can a landlord come into your house?
24-hour notice, 24 to 48 hours written notice.
Ooh, that's a good one. All right, cool. Yes, a landlord can come into your house. They have to give reasonable notice. Right? Weird. Reasonable notice. This is the thing. If your landlord just like says like, hey, I'm coming in, and then just barges in the door, right? I don't feel like that's reasonable. The landlord could claim that that's reasonable. Call an attorney, right? It is not reasonable. Generally, reasonable notice is thought to be at least 24 hours if both days are business days, yeah? So they can't tell you on Sunday, you might not be expected to be there. Friday, Monday, they should come in at reasonable hours between like 9 and 9, those sorts of things. Landlord showing up at midnight with a couple hours notice is probably unreasonable. Landlord showing up at 10 o'clock, probably unreasonable unless there is some sort of problem, yeah? A landlord can never evict you. This is to circle back from where we started. A landlord can never change the locks. The landlord can never take any of your stuff and put it outside. The landlord cannot do it. Has anyone had to deal with this? Yes.
Complex where they did evictions. And like you say, the sheriff came in with the manager.
Well, that's the sheriff.
Yeah, and then they sent the stuff out.
Yeah. Only the sheriff can take stuff out of your apartment or change the locks. Yeah? A landlord cannot do this. If a landlord tries to evict you by shutting off the utilities, changing the locks, you can sue your landlord for 1.5 months' rent, and again, punitive damages. Whatever the cost was of that breach, you can sue for it, okay? You cannot bar a landlord from coming in. A tenant may not refuse to allow reasonable access by the landlord. That's just there for fun. Okay. Whoop. You are back? Yes. So if you refuse to allow the landlord access, the landlord then can sue you, and they can recover actual damages, the cost of failing to enter, the cost of their time, the cost of their labor, the cost of whatever they were trying to fix, and they will inflate this ad infinitum. Okie dokie. I put this in here because this happens. Big casualties, fire, flood, earthquake, hurricane, tornado in this part of the country. If there's a hurricane or a tornado, we see this with Los Angeles with the fires. Guess what landlords did when the fires happened? Asked for rent for burned down buildings. right? Hey, the lease is still active. So you have to give your landlord notice, right? Give the landlord this notice. It's a 5-day notice in this case, right here. Notify the landlord in writing within 5 days that, hey, no one can live in here. A horrible casualty has happened. I'm out. Your lease terminates at the end of 5 days. You will not be required to pay rent after those 5 days. See if there's anything else on here I wanted to talk about.
Michael,
Yes,
you said there was a fire and the landlord asked for,
rent.
but the place is burnt, crispy critters.
Yep.
So if you don't give them in writing after the fire, then you owe for the next
You could. That's the thing, is what we want to do is we want to give lawful notice of these sorts of things. Is we want to follow the law. The law says give lawful notice. So we're going to give notice. This is the thing, is we both as tenants and landlords share responsibilities under these laws. So we're going to give them notice, right? If they were to take you to court, let's just say this. Your house burns down and the landlord takes you to court and says like, Jimmy hasn't paid rent in 5 months ever since that house burned down. The judge is going to be like, what are you doing here? Like, why are we doing this? Really? I could be golfing. Yeah? It's not probably going to go anywhere because the balance of equities does not favor the landlord in court. But landlords don't really use that as a mechanism, nor do other predatory systems, right? Like banks, stuff like that. They give the threat and the authority that they present in their letters and their communication with you to say, hey, you need to pay this money or else. And people pay that money. That's how, like, debt buyers continue to exist. Yeah? Okay. These are what you could sue the landlord for. So there's the breach of warranty of habitability. We've talked about that. Unlawful removal and exclusion and diminished services. We've talked about this. Unlawful entry, retaliatory eviction, unconscionable rental terms like late fees, or theft of property, which falls under the fact that the landlord kicks you out or the landlord throws your stuff on the curb. Can the landlords just throw your stuff on the curb without doing anything else? No. Do they? Of course they do. Right? And then, of course, we'll not forget about this, the unlawful retention of a security deposit. Yes? How much time we got? We're running out of time. Here we go. So we all have duties too as tenants. Here we go. Woo. We must also comply with building safety. Can we break our door and not pay for it? No. Can we allow our ridiculous, gigantic horse dog to come in and scratch all the floors? No. No. Can we let our child draw on the walls? Maybe. The landlord did allow you to have children inside. You know, they see you walking in like, this is me, and these are my 3 children. They're all going to be artists someday. The landlord has noticed that, like, hey, kids live here. Things might get a little dicey, right? However, if your child or yourself or any of your idiot guests damage the property, you are responsible for the damages that they cause, right? Pretty clear. It is art. Yeah. Is it a damage? I think that this has legs. We're going to sell this. I'm going to take it to the crossroads, and we're going to make some real money, landlord, and you're just walking away from that opportunity. Okay, this is our thing. Keep that part of the premises that the tenant occupies and uses as clean and safe as the condition of the premises permit. I love this line because as clean as it permits. Well, if it was already dirty, you know, I loved like the drip pans in the sink, just like in the stove, just like snap a picture. Those are already dirty unless they were brand new drip pans. And this their thing is like also I used the stove for the purpose of cooking. It's gonna get dirty. As clean as it permits, yes, I cleaned it. I cleaned it like an adult. Am I gonna scrub it with a thing because there's like the black soot from the gas gets all over things? No, for Christ's sakes, that's just what happens when you rent a building to someone. You see this carpet? Yes, I'm gonna walk on it. Well, there's you have really made a path in this carpet from walking on it over and over again. Just like, oh, of course I did. Did you want me to float above the carpet? What did you want me to do? Did you want me to put down like newspaper to walk across the carpet? No, it's just a reality of living somewhere. This is the thing, is as clean and safe as the condition permits. So when a landlord just comes to you and says like, all new drip pans, all new drywall, we're gonna shampoo the carpet, all this stuff, it's just like, okay, you can do all that stuff. It is your house, that's fine. However, you can't charge me for it because I kept it as clean as the premises permit. I vacuumed once a week or whatever, I kept it clean. It's not my responsibility to keep this weird, sterile environment in your house. I rented it to live there. People live in there, kids live in there, things get spilled, things happen. I'm gonna clean the Kool-Aid out of the rug as best as I can. But you knew children, Kool-Aid sucking children, lived there, okay? Go. All right, we shall keep all plumbing and fixtures as clean as the condition permits as well, right? This means we do not throw drugs down the toilets, yeah, or things that don't belong in the toilets. Kitty litter is a fascinating thing to put in the toilet, but people do it every day. Don't. Coffee grounds? Well, don't do that. Coffee grounds go in the... They do put diapers. The toilet commercials that exhibit that you can flush such things are just leading to the steady erosion of America's plumbing system. Yeah, don't put grease down the sinks as well. Like, this is the thing, is we have to bear the responsibility of owning a place as clean as the conditions permit, right? This indicates, like, we will not disturb the quiet and peaceful enjoyment of other tenants. Amen. It is a duty of both the landlord and the tenant, right? So if you're a tenant and you hear all day and all night, call the landlord. If you're a tenant and you're doing this, stop. All right. Did you always check with your landlord before allowing someone else to move in? There might, this is another thing of why we keep a good relationship with the landlord. It's because, frankly, landlords are other people. If there's very few red flags, really chill. I had this landlord named Richard. He didn't care what happened. We wrecked that house. It was a real college situation, and it was bad. But the landlord was just like, you and Adam were the best tenants I ever had. Yeah. Place is still standing. That's great. Let's go. Here's your deposit back. Like, I'm sitting there just like, really? Because I'm not the guy who moved in here. I just took over his room when he went to like Colorado for like whatever, but he was like, oh, you two are the best. Look at you guys go. All right. If you fail to comply, the landlord can give you a 1430 as well. Does the landlord's 1430 have to end on a rent-paying day? No. Right? And they're probably pretty stringent about this sort of thing. What they do is very interesting, landlords, because they can, any rule, they can give you a 1430, any violation of that. And I think a lot of people fall for the 1430 a little more than they need to. We're also only bearing the duty to make a reasonable effort to resolve these problems, right? We have this problem a lot. Susie got in a fight with Bobby. Two tenants getting in a fight with each other, right? This is a great example of two things. The landlord will just give the notice to Susie. Well, where's the notice for Bobby? That's a failure to apply regulations equally to all tenants. Two, okay, landlord, I'm not talking to Bobby anymore. Okay, so then I have remedied the breach. The landlord can say like, well, you got in a fight with Bobby and that's it. Yeah, I can't have my tenants fighting and blah, 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 blah. And there's other tenants, so you could get in fights with them, and so you haven't remedied the breach and you're out of here. No. And if the landlord attempts to evict you on that basis, call Kansas Legal Services, because it simply isn't true. You can just stop doing the thing, right? Your buddy, your new boyfriend is staying over too long. Cool, okay. Rick's gonna leave, I got it. Rick's out of here. Here's a picture of the couch without Rick on it. Here's a Max isn't here anymore. You know, like he got a job. Thank God. They're gone. Hey, I remedied the breach. The landlord will carry through with the 1430 anyway and attempt to remove a person for one of those actions, violating the lease, violating a rule, something that materially affects health and safety. If you break the window and say like, hey, I put a board over it, I'm gonna get a new window, I'll pay you for a new window, you've also made a reasonable good faith effort to remedy the breach. They cannot evict you for that, no matter how egregious the problem might have been, as long as you attempt reasonably to make them whole. Yes, don't stay after your lease runs out. Yeah, we all know when our lease runs out. That's the other date on the lease. So don't stay, because if you hold over in a place, you may have lived there for 7, 20 years. Like, I've been here since it was built. Diddle-a-doo. If your lease ends, leave. Don't tangle with them, because you are just holding over, and they can terminate your lease for just no reason at that point. Go for it.
My property got sold to another landlord.
Yep.
And he does not want the property because he offered it to us to buy.
Do it.
But we're in no position to buy, unfortunately.
Hmm.
So I'll be down to 30 days because we're month to month. So if he sells it to XYZ, they can give us 30. They only need to give us 30 days to leave, right? Is that what I'm reading?
No. So holdover is by a tenant, right? Holdover by tenant. The tenant stays longer than the lease term, right? So a landlord and landlords nowadays are all selling the properties, you know. And this thing is, if you purchase a property, you purchase all of the contracts that run with the property. So if you moved in, that's your day one, I've got a year lease, and you sold the property the next day, that new landlord cannot welch on your contract and say, like, you have a month to month now. Will they try?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Don't let them. Yeah? Call Kansas Legal Services. Also, let your landlord know. Again, having a good relationship with the landlord, knowing what they actually care about. If Richard lives in New Jersey and doesn't care, well, good. You know, awesome. You know? But if you don't tell the landlord and you are absent for more than 30 days, the landlord can go in to be like, what is happening here? Yeah? Even if you pay rent. Right? If a tenant is more than 10 days late on rent and has removed their stuff, the landlord can come in. This is what happened at the end of every tenancy I've ever had. I just paid rent and left, right? Moved to a new place. The open road. You had a question.
You didn't answer my question. So can they give you 30 days? Or are you going to get to that?
Can they give you 30 days? If you have a month-to-month tenancy, yes. If you have a month-to-month tenancy, you can get a 30-day notice anytime. The 30 days has to end on a rent-paying day. If I have a 30-day lease right now, they can give me a notice, but that notice ends when?
Next month, at the end of the month.
Yes, it ends on July 1st, right? Will they give me a 30-day notice that ends on June 10th? Yes. Is that lawful? No. This is why it's better to know, because most people probably move out in the middle of a month when there's no place that's taking on new people. They don't want to do that pro rata stuff or whatever it is. That's the issue, is if you know these things, you're better equipped to, resolve the issues, contact Kansas Legal Services, know when your rights are being violated. Do. All right. You need a move-out inspection when you move out, just so you can let the landlord know. They'll come in and say, like, all these light bulbs are burned out, all these drip pans are full of trash, there's, all this stuff all over the walls. There's a bat in here, Well, if you have pictures of a no bat-filled apartment, well, that's good. Then you can say, like, there weren't when I did the inspection, when I asked you to come do the inspection, the move-out inspection, and took all these pictures. These pictures, time-stamped, magical, metadata is great. You can show, hey, I don't owe the whatever happened after I left. Who knows if this happened on, July 3rd or whenever that is. It was after I left. You can't prove it was while I lived there. Oh, I wandered too far away. Okay, we're way past time now. Who wants more? Questions?
So I do have a question on the month to month. So with the 1430 or whatever on the month to month, couldn't they just choose not to renew your next month?
Yes, but they do have to give you notice of that non-renewal. Okay, so in order to be evicted, you must have gotten notice. You cannot be evicted without notice. Then this is the process. We moved on to the final portion of this. This covers a lot of what I'm going to cover in our same. We'll have another thing like this, another presentation in July when we'll talk about exclusively navigating the eviction process should it happen to you. Just as a general overview, you must receive notice. The notice must be real. The notice must be adequate. They can't give you a 3-day notice that in fact only contains 2 days. Yeah? They can't give you a 1430 that's 28 days long. It has to be real notice. After the notice period, they can then file it in court. You will get papers mailed to you from the court that will tell you when you're supposed to come to the good old District Court 7 right over here. In Lawrence, we have a magical rule that says you have to have the notice with the petition filled out in the court. If the notice you got on your door and the notice in the packet are different, the landlord's breaking the law. All right. You have to appear in person. We're so far out of time, right? I can't do it. 5 minutes? Sweet. Okay. We got 10 minutes. All right. So you come to court. You're all in court now. I'm the judge. Ready? Good. Do you owe your landlord rent?
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Do you owe your landlord rent?
No, I just paid it the first of the month.
Sure you did. Do you owe your landlord rent?
I'm paid up.
You're paid up. Okay. Do you owe your landlord rent?
Not anymore.
No, it's fine. Do you owe your landlord rent? You guys are getting good at this. Do you owe your landlord rent? No? Do you owe your landlord rent? What about you? It's your turn. Do you owe your landlord rent? Do you owe your landlord rent?
No.
Do you owe your landlord?
Not that I know of.
Do you owe your landlord?
Yeah.
There you go. Do you owe your landlord? Do you owe your landlord? The rent you're supposed to have in the contract, you don't owe that.
We're good?
Okay. Do you owe your landlord rent?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Right? Do you owe your landlord rent? Yeah? No? Do you have a contract with your landlord? They brought you to court today. Do you owe your landlord rent? No. Okay. Do you owe your landlord rent? No. Do you owe your landlord rent? You guys are doing great. I love this. Give yourselves a round of applause. Only 2 of you got evicted. It's true. That's the thing. They'll come, they'll take you to court, and they'll say, like, do you owe this rent? Your landlord says you owe $500 of rent. 3 days late on rent. Do you owe that rent? The judge won't tell you which or what you're supposed to be here for or anything. They'll say this case has now come to order. It is, Center Page LLC PM Property Management against you. They say you owe rent. Do you owe rent? And you say, no. Hopefully you don't. Yes. So this is the thing. They're going to ask you if you have a debt owing to the landlord. That's what they're really asking when they say, do you owe rent? The landlord's saying you do. And if you agree that you owe rent, then you've agreed to the petition. You've agreed to the judgment. Just like if you and your husband are up there and you say, like, I want a divorce, and your husband's like, I also want a divorce. The judge is going to be like, sweet, quick day, nice. If the parties agree, yes, I owe the rent, because maybe you do. Maybe you owe, $7,000, but you haven't paid because the ceiling fell in and the house burned down like 2 months ago, but here you are in court, and the landlord's saying, like, say you owe $7,000. Be quick with the no. Say no and have these reasons why. No, I don't owe rent because I was trying to pay them and their portal blocked me out. They locked me out of the portal. I tried to give them the security. I tried to give them the cashier's check. They said, no, you get money from, welfare, so we don't want your money. I tried to give money for my kid's apartment. And they say, like, no, the rent has to come from the person. No, come on. Yeah, they say you owe rent, but you've been like paying to keep the heat bills up, which are too high. All that money can come back. Call an attorney when you get this notice. Because by the time you get to here, you find yourself in court, sworn under oath, and confused about what you're supposed to say. Yep. Boink. All right. These are the general defenses. The landlord did not file proper notice. The landlord didn't give you a 1430, didn't give you a 3-day. You've paid rent within the 3-day period. Landlord says you have 3 days to pay or vacate, and then you pay, and the landlord says, not good enough. You're still kicked out, right? I don't like your friend Charlie who hangs out all the time. You're still kicked out. No, if you don't like my friend Charlie and I didn't pay rent, you also have to give me notice about my friend Charlie who is a menace. Yes? Modifications to the agreement. They said like, oh, you know what? I'll give you a break. It's December, Christmas time. You can only pay $500. Then they sue you in January because they're missing $300 of rent because they forgot their kind-heartedness. Happens all the time. More defenses. Once again, if you would like a copy of this, I'm happy to give it to you. I've got these linked to the statutes that support these claims. We've been over this one before. All right, now we're done. Questions? I really tried to make a shorter presentation, but somehow I made it longer. So, still workshopping it. Any questions? Yes.
Based on something I read up there, I think this girl I know, she was in the wrong.
Sure.
Her tenant. She lived on a second floor of an apartment. The first floor person right below her registered a complaint with management that her cat made too much noise running across the floor.
That's a big-ass cat.
Yes, that's what I was wondering. But based on what I read up there, it's disturbing their normal living. Mr. First Floor doesn't like it, so it sounds like that she was in the wrong.
No, I mean, okay, so maybe she and her tiger were making too much noise. But, I mean, I would wonder, like, okay, if it's like a house cat running back and forth, you know, like, how much is this truly disturbing your quiet? I'm like, bring me the thing, like, it's running back and forth like 3 times a day. Like, okay, life is full of little mysteries. You know, like, that's a question that I think the lady could bring up if she was, in fact, like, evicted for the loudness of her cat. You know, there would have to be at least some sort of evidence. This is why you say no. Because saying no in that answer hearing for an eviction, the first time you come to court, it gets you a one-way ticket to a trial. And that's where you do have an opportunity to talk to the judge. The first day you come in, all you say is yes or no. The second day you can talk till you're blue in the face about all the problems the landlord has had with you. Please get an attorney so you're not just rambling in a courthouse, right? But at a trial for that eviction, I think there would be a question of like, okay, I don't think the cat running around materially affects health and safety, and prove, because the plaintiff bears the burden, right, to prove, prove how much? Anybody know how much you have to prove? 100%. Never. Never. More likely than not, the preponderance of the evidence. The preponderance, yes. The beyond a shadow of a doubt is the criminal standard. But yeah, so I really think that's a little far-fetched if the landlord was actually going to evict on that purpose. And most of the time what happens is the landlord sends the notice and people flee away from the place. You know, and this is the thing. If we like our places to stay, if we like where we're at, we can fight for it. We have the rights to allow us to continue to stay in these places. Yeah? And this is what we want to support. If your landlord is horrible, currently horrible, can't get away from him, hey, let's get you out of there. Let's get you away from these toxic people who are just in it for the money. If there's people who are genuinely in there to like, hey, I want to help people have a nice place to live and make sure it's nice for them, and yes, they pay me to do that, that is something that we've decided is okay in this country. So, sure, let's make the best of it. But in the meantime, if you have a landlord who's ruining your life with their nonsense, well, the sins of this guilty land will not be purged except by blood. I can still here for questions if you have more questions. I just love John Brown. Took a broadsword to a gunfight, and that guy's got ideas. Yes, please.
How long normally if I call to see you guys, like appointments wise?
That depends on how many attorneys are available. So usually we try to get to calls as soon as possible at Kansas Legal Services. Currently for this area, we have 2 eviction attorneys out of Topeka, and we're also covering them in Kansas City. So there's about 5 eviction attorneys available right now who can help you with your case if you have an eviction case. Yes.
So if you're being evicted, and you go to Kansas Legal Services and you help them, what are the most likely outcomes of your cases?
What we like to do, that's a fun question. What we like to do is we look at your situation and we attempt to come to like the best, most reasonable thing. In many cases, like we get people who, okay, yes, Chelsea, you have not paid rent in 5 months. Well, they're mean to me. Okay, Chelsea, what we're gonna do is we're gonna call your landlord and attempt to make a deal to keep you in the house. What if we pay half the rent in bulk, right? And you can stay on your lease or something like that. In cases where the landlord is, very derelict in their duties, we had one where, like the whole place was falling in, then we can go after those damages, And at Kansas Legal Services, we don't keep the damages we get, so they would go right to you, And it will all depend on like the judge. The judges here in Douglas County are pretty tenant friendly, or they'll at least listen to the part of our rights that is withheld under the law there. So we do have a pretty good chance of getting you some of that stuff back. I think generally, especially when it comes to like what do we actually need, which at the end of the day is like the most important question for an attorney, right? If you want to go off like hog wild and sue your attorney or sue your landlord for $1 million, we're probably not going to help with that. If you can show me $1 million worth of damages, I'll do that. I'm psyched. But if you want to tell me like the sob story that my very loud cat is now on kitty Prozac because of its loud feet, I'm going to be like, hey, you can, there's lots of attorneys, but if, we really are, our goal is to help people who are definitely endangered by their situations, which is very true. Lead with no waivers. High utility bills can be such an indication of some greater problem within the house. I lived in this one place, it was great. We heard this little weird thing in the walls. It was like this, all the time. And it was like, that's weird. And it's me and my cousin. This is Dan again, right? And we're just like living there, just being like, that wall's making weird noises. Let's not do anything about it and keep smoking cigarettes in here. It's fine. Well, one day the whole wall just collapsed, right? And it turns out like the pipe for the shower had a break in it at one of the connections and was just spraying water into the wall and slowly eroded the drywall over like 2 months. And hey, we didn't notice and we looked at the bills later and was like, wow, $300 water bill. That surely was a red flag. But we were all 20, so what's money? It's all beer money to 20-year-olds, So 21-year-olds. Yes. So I mean, these are things to look out for. And the thing is, like, hey, calling Kansas Legal Services is free. My favorite call is to tell people, like, that's not a problem, or that's not a problem yet, or these are things you need to do. Let's get talking to your landlord now. My least favorite call is when someone says, I have eviction court tomorrow and I have to go there and I think my landlord's doing bad things. I'm just like, Susie, I can't. Not about to just wander out to Lawrence to a court where I don't know anything about the situation and start yelling that like your rights have been violated. That's malpractice, yeah? You wouldn't want your doctor just being like, I'll pop you open for some surgery right now, get over here. No, I need to know what's going on. We need pictures, we need stuff, we need time because I personally have like 200 cases. So we need some time to fit you in, yeah, in the schedule. Any other questions? You do. This is Gabby Sprague.
Hi, everyone. My